G'day BookTube, you're here with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, and today I want to talk to you about a fellow Australian by the name of James Islington. That's right, James Islington is the author of one of the best books that I've read this year, The Will of the Many, which is the first book in the Hierarchy series. I read this book earlier this year and it was an absolute banger. I absolutely loved it. It is currently the 19th of November. The second book in the Hierarchy series, The Strength of the Few, was released on the 11th of November. Like a good groupie, I pre-ordered my copy of it, but unfortunately, I live in the middle of nowhere, outback Australia, and so my copy has not yet arrived. So all I can do is sit here and think about all the things that I want to see James explore in the second book of this series. I'm going to basically do a bit of a reading vlog, right? I want to tell you a little bit about why I love this book, keep it really brief. 3 things that I am proposing, 3 things that I am positing about the Strength of the Few and what I think might take place. And then I'm going to give you my reactions as I'm going along. Every now and then, if I feel compelled, I'll turn the camera on and I'll give you my thoughts as to where I'm up to, what's occurred, what's been debunked, where I think it's going from here. So you guys can all laugh at me retrospectively when I absolutely butcher all of my hot takes about Strength of the Few. So what I found really interesting about the first one in the Hierarchy series, The Will of the Many, is that it didn't really push a whole lot of boundaries as far as the genre was concerned. He relied heavily on tropes. But to be honest, I'm not even a little bit upset. This is how many tropes he had, though. So we had the orphan trope, the secret royalty trope. You had the Roman hierarchy, the entire structure of the world in which we live. You had the rival factions. You had your military, your governance, and your religion. So you had that aspect of the trope. You then also had the rebellion. Like you see in every single Star Wars film, the rebellion was there. You had the academy or the elite school trope. You had the damsel in distress, you had the mentor relationships, there was the threat of an ancient power or an evil weapon or something like that, the cataclysm as we kept calling it. There was an ally turn antagonist, there was antagonist turn ally, and the whole story is essentially a series of quests. It's one big quest that Viz is on, and because he's at the academy, there's all these little side quests that he has to go on. Despite it being really trope heavy, the character development was terrific and the stakes were super high, which made this book thoroughly enjoyable. What do I mean by the stakes? You had this threat of cataclysmic annihilation just sitting over everything. You have the faction war brewing where one miscalculation, one misstep from a suitably high-ranking official in those 3 different pillars was going to be a tinderbox, just setting the whole thing alight. And then Viz found himself stuck in between the Anguis, between his past and between the Telemus family and what they were trying to achieve. And so he's undercover in so many different ways and he has to watch every single word that he says. And it just creates tension in every conversation. That's why it was really enjoyable. It was really fun. I liked the characters. I really enjoyed Calidus. Iden as well. Probably fell in love with Emissra at some point as well, as I'm inclined to do when reading these types of books. But I'll be honest, when I finished reading The Will of the Many, I was nervous. I was nervous because of what James Islington set up right at the end. Those 3 worlds that he's alluded to with Res, Obitium, and Lyceum. That 3 world system that he's alluding to, where I'm pretty sure the next book's going to go, has me really nervous because I feel like this is going to be hard to stick. He's going to be trying to achieve so much. I don't know how many pages are in the next one. This was a beast of a book as well, 640, but like size 8 font. So really it was like 900 pages. Unless he's going to do a Sanderson and throw out an 1100 page book, I think he's going to be up against it, which has me a little bit nervous because I loved the first one so much. I hope he carries that momentum through, but we'll see. We'll see. So 3 things that I am interested to see, or 3 little theories that I have for Strength of the Few.
Theories. Your theory. My theory? My theory is...
The first one is that these worlds, Lyceum, Obitium, and Res, from what I can see, is just a normal world, everyday life. But Lyceum and Obitium, I feel, are going to be a heaven and a hell representation. And why? I'm thinking about one of the, I was going to say flashback. It's not a flashback, it's a flash forward. The vision, one of the visions that Viz had at one point in time, where Viz saw the island of Solovargus and he saw it exactly how he knew it. But he also then saw it slightly nicer, right? Like more rolling, lush green hills, rolling down onto a beach, really quite picturesque. And then he also saw the one with lightning crashing around everywhere, massive big waves, dark storm clouds, and then no beach whatsoever, just like sharp, jagged rocks, something that looked really hellish. And so that's the vibe that I'm getting. We'll see. we'll absolutely see. There's a heck of a lot of, despite it being really Roman themed, there's a lot of Egyptian vibes as well. And so the underworld comes into it. When he's in those crypts, I can't help but feel like there are hieroglyphics all over the wall. And we've got the pyramid structures in everything. So the Egyptians loved their afterlife themes, and perhaps Oberteam or Lakeem, whichever one it ends up being, could end up being that hellish landscape. So that's my first theory about what's going to take place in Strength of the Few. The second one is
Theory 2.
around our missing will. Calidus explains to us how in the hierarchy structure, there's a whole bunch of will that's gone missing at the top echelons. And because of the way it multiplies on each other, this is a huge, vast quantity of will. Where has it gone? We didn't get an answer for that. And so I can only assume that we're going to explore that in the next one. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with the cataclysm. We know that there's been cataclysms in the past and it wipes out nearly everyone except for children or something similar, or at least children are more inclined to survive the cataclysm. I know that Islington, listening to him in interviews, is a huge fan of Sanderson. And so I'm picturing this Lord Ruler type figure, potentially misunderstood, who everyone assumes is the cause of the cataclysm, but is in fact siphoning off will to prevent the cataclysm, to keep the cataclysm at bay. Picture Loki from his most recent standalone TV show, where right at the end you see him holding on to the threads of reality, sacrificing himself. Perhaps that's what we're going to see, where there's there a God Emperor, a Lord Ruler, who is actually doing the best they can to hold the cataclysm at bay. But to do that, they need to siphon off will from as many people as they can, which is why the sappers first came into existence, so that they could seed that amount of will into one person to hold the cataclysm at bay. Which begs the question, would you permit something like a sapper in your society to save death and destruction of a whole bunch of other adults? It's an interesting idea. That's my second idea around where the missing will is going.
Fascinating theory.
And the third one, I'm not convinced that Viz's sister, I can't even remember her name right now, Viz's sister, I'm not convinced that she's in fact dead. Now, I might have missed this. Perhaps there was something where Viz is back in the underground tunnels in his old house where he meets up with Ferdinand or whatever the guy's name is, Frederic, guy with starting a name with F, can't think of his name, where he meets up with him and he explains that his sister is in fact dead and he saw her dead body. But maybe I don't know. I can't really recall that. I've got a half memory of that. I'm pretty sure it's vague enough. Pretty sure Viz's sister is still alive and we will see her in time. So that's the third little thing that I am positing, that I am guessing any day now, my copy of Strength of the Few should come, and I'm going to dive straight in. I maybe take a sick day because I am so looking forward to reading this book. WillOfTheMany was awesome. Like, this was S tier for me. There's probably been 3 S tier reads for me in 2025, and this was one of them. So I really hope, I am praying that Islington is able to stick this 3-world system that he's alluded to, and it's just going to go from strength to strength. And I'm here for Viz. I want to see him rise up. What he's going to do? Is he overthrowing? Is that his mission in the end? Or he just wanted to go off into obscurity? I'm here for it, Islington. I'm down for this. I'm strapped in. Just someone give me a book. I'm trying my hardest not to buy a Kindle version of it. I'm waiting for the hardcover copy. Until next time, ciao. I've just finished chapter 10 of The Strength of the Few. We're only 85 pages in. And I feel like this is the first time when I've had any idea what's going on. And I'm not upset by this at all. It's the scene with Viz, Ulkisor, Reliquia, and importantly with Lannister. If you've read this scene, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This was absolutely fire. I loved it. Loved the way that it played off the other storylines that we've got going on here. This was awesome. I hope this momentum stays for the rest of the book. Loving it. 85 pages in. G'day BookTube, you're here with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman. I'm back for another update on my reading vlog, if that's what we're going to call it, of Strength of the Few. This is the first time that I've pulled the book out now for your pleasure. I got too excited at the end of chapter 10. We just saw that. We saw our scene with Lannister. I really enjoyed that scene. That marked a significant change of pace, a change in momentum for me in this book. Something that I spoke about at the end of the last book, that I was actually really nervous about the 3-pronged world that Islington opened up at the end of the WillOfTheMany. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be tough. For him to be able to stick this in the next book and build a coherent storyline through this, it's got me nervous. And so far,
It's a yes from me.
I'm digging it. I'm liking it. And this book is actually so much more ambitious than I thought it was going to be. This is going to be full of spoilers. I don't know how else to talk about this and update my thoughts as they're happening without just having spoilers all over it.
Warning! Spoiler alert! Spoiler! Spoilers.
So if you haven't read this, if you haven't read Will of the Many, stop immediately, go and read those, then come back and enjoy all of the mistakes that I make in terms of what I am envisaging in this world. Islington is not only got these 3 worlds, but he has 3 distinct storylines that he is now pursuing. And the bit that I love is that Viz is totally ignorant of what's going on the other worlds. He's got no idea. In Lyceum right now, he still thinks he's somewhere on Res. He's completely oblivious. He thinks that, everyone back at the school on Solivargus is looking for him, and he's still thinking about hiding his identity with Diago and that whole piece as well. It's really funny. And then you go to Obertium, and Obertium is different again because of the scarab thing that this put on. The dude's still got an arm. But we actually have seen, there were at least 2 moments where I gained an appreciation that there are people living in this world that are aware of the existence of the other worlds. So obviously Obertium, both he and Cyril are aware of Res. They understand that. And I assume they're aware of Lyceum as well. But in Lyceum, Kian, the druid warrior who wildly gets his head chopped off, I was not expecting that scene. I thought that scene was going to be him single-handedly, Mandalorian style, taking down 55 bad dudes. And that's not what took place at all. It was just like decapitation right there in the moment. It was almost like a Kelsier self-sacrifice kind of moment, except Kelsier was doing it knowingly. Kian had no idea that he was going to die. He was so sure that his position in society was going to demand respect and people wouldn't go near him. He was walking around like he was Jedi and everyone knew it as well. So that scene took me by surprise. Really enjoyed that. But just prior to that, Viz is like, dude, I want to help. And he stops and he looks at him and he muses for a second and he says, well, if you truly are the strongest of the 3, implying that he is aware of the other versions of Viz getting around. The other example we saw with Mr. Scarface, Anguis, not Anguis guy, I totally forgotten what this guy's name is. Don't know if we have a name for him yet. I'm going to call him Scarface, right? Where he is talking with Viz and implies that hopefully the version of you on Lyceum is increasing their knowledge of Will for you to be able to do the same thing here on Res. And he name drops Lyceum explicitly. So I found that interesting as well, that the actions of Lyceum Viz is going to influence what Res Viz can do. There's obviously 3 unique channels of Will and what they can do. Because that was what Carr did, right? Like he split it up and itemized the Will essentially, and he was the only one that could still access the full spectrum of what Will has to offer and how you can manipulate Will. And that was his secret source, right? That's his power that he's got and how he's able to maintain dominion and authority over everyone within each of those 3 worlds. Carr exists in all 3 worlds. Carr exists on Res. We have met Carr. Who is Carr? Okay. As I'm reading it, there are 2, 3 that I've come up with so far. The first one is obvious, Mr. Scarface. He is seemingly the only one that has increased knowledge and increased skills in comparison to everyone else that we've met. The dude can transport through space, or he can make himself invisible. One of those 2 things he is doing. And Viz was able to sense that congregation of Will around this guy as well. That similar sort of thrumming thing, which implies it's from Obertium, likely. Scarface could be Carr. The other one as well, and I feel like the longer I go into this book, so I haven't really told you that, I'm 160 odd pages in, we had to start the 21st chapter, so 175 pages in, and there's been 1.5 mentions of Indol, because there was a moment where I was like, oh, maybe Indol's father is in fact Carr, and there is a secret there that they're keeping. I was really starting to like Indol as a character. He was starting to really build and develop, and I could see a potential face-off or an allegiance coming in time between Viz and Indol. That hasn't really come about, and if we go another 50 pages without mentioning Indol again, I reckon that dude's just dead and buried in the first novel. He's not coming back. So I was thinking Indol's father could have been Carr for a while, and I'm about ready to bury that one. The third one, and this is what I feel is most likely from here, it's Viz's father. Viz's father is alive and well and is in fact Carr. And the reason why the hierarchy sought them out on Sus and needed to kill the entire family, because that family, or at least the dad, was synchronous. And that was the special power that they had. We saw that Melior could harness that power. He had that power that is, I'm pretty sure, only exists right now on Obertium, and Melior was using that. That's one of my next predictions. I reckon Viz's dad has a role to play, and he could be Car. He could be that Lord Ruler that I was describing earlier in this, where he is possibly holding the Cataclysm at bay. He, at minimum, was threatening hierarchy's power and their structure and everything that they had going. And so that is why they actually had to reach out and try and murder them, kill them, wipe them off the board, remove that chess piece. So that's one of the random little predictions that I've got so far, 165 pages in. One of the little quotes that I absolutely loved was Viz talking to Cyril, and he says, "You put me in a tomb?" And Cyril's like, "Well, it's a nice tomb. It's one of the nicest ones we had." It felt very much like a little Monty Python moment between those two. I enjoyed that. One of the other moments that I liked was Cyril when he's first controlling, imbuing, I don't know what word we want to use here, the Yunkti. I'm saying Yunkti. I don't know how you're pronouncing that word. There are far too many vowels in that word for it to be a normal word. Yunkti. If you're in doubt, I also called them zombies for the first 5 pages that I read about them as well, because I'm like, oh, they're zombies. Okay, I can work with that. The first time he's trying to control the Yunkti, and he's trying to give him explicit commands. Hey, this is your left of arc. This is your right of arc. Don't do this. Don't do that. It sounds exactly like me when I'm trying to give a prompt to ChatGPT or Grok or one of those large language models and trying to prevent it from hallucinating. Okay, don't experience this. Don't do that. Make no intention of doing this. Don't you dare think about this. Narrowing it in. One of the other things that is bugging me at the moment is a little theory that I'm developing and ties into there's something special about Viz and Viz's family and his father and the royal family on Sus. I think there's something innately special about Viz's blood. So we hear from Cyril as they're talking about the Golden Door. Cyril says, only those that have achieved synchronous are able to penetrate that barrier, are able to touch and survive. Yet, we saw Viz penetrate, get to Melior because of the stylus. But importantly, that stylus was actually full of Viz's blood. This is Viz's blood pre-synchronism, pre-being synchronous. Is there something innately special about his blood, or is there something in the stylus? Was there something that Melior had that was from Obertium that was able to make that work? Or was Melior's blood, in fact, synchronous, and he mixed his blood with Viz's blood, and that's how he was able to get through? I've just been umming and ahhing around that. And that lends to my theory around something being special, innately special about Viz and Viz's family. I loved, and I've just finished reading it, where Viz comes out onto the balcony and he's looking for Iden. The whole premise is he's trying to get Iden's attention, let him know the cart's about to leave. And he starts going on this big, massive story about how he's here for the people and he's trying to win them over. I couldn't help but picture a moment from the movie Gladiator where he says, win the crowd, win your freedom.
Win the crowd, you'll win your freedom.
And that's all that I was reciting to myself as Viz is up there giving his massive speech to the crowd. It was really enjoyable. Cyril's an interesting character as well. He seems good and honourable, but I feel like that's too vanilla for his character to just be good and honourable the entire way through. So I'm on a watch. Cyril, you're on a watch. I'm watching you. You've still got a role to play, and I don't yet trust you. We'll see if I regret that. No one can be that good and honourable, can they? I don't know. The daughter in Tale of Two Cities, she was good and honourable in everything that she did. I didn't like her. She was too good and honourable. Anyway, back to this one. Something else that I learned. I'm learning so much as I read this about misconceptions that I had from the first one. And this one's around the magic system, where we had Viz, who's trying to trick the test he's doing. So he cedes to Iden the night before goes. And so he's an Octavie, wandering around like an Octavie. That's a new insult that I've got as well. I'm like, you're about as quick as an Octavie. Slightly rude. And it's a niche crowd that understands what I'm saying. But I'm going to roll with it. No, I won't roll. That's rude. Don't be rude. Don't insult people. You got nothing nice to say, as Mum used to say. So back to the story. Iden, Viz is Octavie. Why? Because he ceded half of his strength to Iden to trick the test. And then we hear that when Viz is receiving will from the Secti and Calidus's sister and the other people, he makes the comment that surely Iden is aware of the increased power being passed to him. And it made me realize that if he is ceding to Iden, everything that gets ceded to him, 50% of that goes to Iden. Or at least that's my understanding of what was taking place. Because Viz was making such a big deal about getting his original will back. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this guy's just got like the equivalent of 44 people ceding to him. He would be feeling like an absolute monster of a human right now. What's the difference between half of his original strength and original will being missing? So what I think is taking place is in not being 44, everything that comes to him, half of that then goes straight on to Iden, which I think makes sense in terms of the pyramid. How frustrating would it be if you had to go around and find everyone that you were in connection with, in cahoots with, and had to touch them all the time to transfer more and more power? So I think that's a permanent connection. So that was a misunderstanding that I had in the first. Maybe I misunderstand it now, but I think that's what we had described to us in that scene. I've got a mate at work who's read the book. He's already finished because he got the Kindle. Good on him. I waited forever to get the hardcover copy. And so I'm just bouncing ideas off him and he's just smiling at me the whole way, which is really enjoyable. But he misunderstood that as well. He's like, oh, I just thought because it was like the OG, his actual original will, therefore it was more powerful. It was like spicy will or something like that. So it's just funny. I nerd out on every little detail and he's just like, boom, I believe, moving on, magic system's cool, let's crack on. You can read these books in very different ways. I'm excited so far. We're bouncing between these three storylines. I'm enjoying the different personalities that are almost starting to form. Lakeem as well is a bit of an anomaly, very different. He's still playing that political intrigue game on Res, and he is just living in this hellish Arrakis landscape on Obertium. I'm enjoying this. I was blatantly wrong with my heaven and hell premise. Like we've found hell. Obertium is hellish. It is Arrakis. It is unforgiving. The air is toxic to breathe. If I could describe hell, I would have toxic air in my version of hell. But Lukeem is not heaven. Okay, so I missed out on that one. There are 3 different worlds, and we're seeing lots of 3s. The Latin right at the start was omnitrium perfectum, which is something along the lines of everything in 3s is perfect. We've obviously got the 3 different factions, governance, religion, military. Does that relate? Interesting. Military, you've definitely got that on Obertium. Viz is, at some stage, he's going to fight Edward Scissorhands on Obertium. Res is playing this game of politics. Is that not governance? So we've got Obertium, military, Res, governance, and that leaves religion for Lakeem. Interesting. We'll see if I'm going somewhere with that. And it's not heaven, earth, and hell, but in fact, military, governance, and religion. Interesting. We'll see where we go with that. Either way, I'm really enjoying this. I'm going to stop doing videos so I can read more. Until next time, ciao. G'day BookTube, you're back with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, for another reading update on my progress so far on Strength of the Few by James Islington. This is the reading vlog series that I'm doing. I've now completed part 1. So I'm about, whatever we want to call that, 40% of the way through, 270 pages, end of part 1. And so far I'm enjoying it. We have well and truly entrenched this 3-world system. So we've got these 3 concurrent storylines going on. And the unique thing about what Islington's doing is that Viz is the lead character in all 3 worlds. It's not uncommon to have disparate storylines and eventually they're going to weave their way back together. And you're like, oh, that was really clever in the way that you've crafted that. However, we have 3 distinct storylines, and I have no doubt that these weave back together. We're seeing Easter eggs planted already, and we're seeing some crossover, some bleed through. But Viz is the main character in each, which is really quite unique. I'm enjoying this. Not everything's a home run, but that's okay. I'm enjoying extrapolating, no doubt incorrectly, what's happening. So I'm liking it so far, and I'm really liking the exploration of will. The differences in will and how it's treated in each world, and how they each have their own strengths, their own weaknesses, and they are, at this point in time, very much stuck in their lane in those 3 worlds. And we're waiting for that moment where Viz, no doubt, is going to be able to bring those all together to put himself as this God Emperor, right? Sitting on top. Why? Because he has mastered the art of will. He is Neo, and he has started to believe.
He's beginning to believe.
So the way that I want to break this down is by those 3 worlds, because that's how I've started taking notes so I can sort of synthesize my thoughts a little bit better. So we'll start with Obertium. Obertium is this hellish Arrakis landscape. Real dark, heavy Egyptian themes. Viz became a shish kebab and was able to gain access to the city of Duat, where the Gleaner, with his Edward scissor arms, just like pierced him right through the heart. Made me a little squirmish. You know when you watch someone experience pain and you yourself feel it, like in your lower abdomen. Yeah, I had that in reading that section of the books. Well done. You described that obviously well enough. So good work on that one. Viz then forced the same Gleaner to go postal and to start annihilating all of his mates. I feel like that's a pretty useful skill set to have. If you can get these guys fighting on your team, go for it, Viz. I'm all for it. He ran then a far spookier version of the labyrinth than we have ever seen. He then risked everything. Again, risked everything, Viz, to save a dude that was already dead. Viz, priorities, please. You need to set some people aside. You need to make some cutthroat decisions coming forward, or otherwise you are going to get yourself caught and you're going to get yourself in all sorts of trouble. Now, and don't quote Iden's "everyone needs to have a line" at me as well. The dude was already dead. There was your line, okay? You could have left him stuck on his sapper, having those heavy Inquisitor themes. You could have just left him there. He's dead. That's okay. No one would have judged you too harshly on that one. You missed a moment there, Viz, but that's okay. He's probably going to reap dividends for you in the future and fool me. And last update for Overteam, Viz proved that he can open the gold thrumming doors. Got to a point in time where he couldn't muck around, had to punch on through and got through. Further emphasizing the fact that there is something unique about Viz. Ciro believes it's as a result of becoming synchronous, whereas I believe Viz already had the ability. And I think Viz thinks that as well, as demonstrated by the Melior moment at the Nomarchia in the Will of the Many. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's Overteam. It's hellish, it's dark, heavily Egyptian, but good, a good world. Next we've got Lucium. I really like Lucium. I did say that I felt like my heaven and hell concept before I started reading has been debunked already. But mind you, the more I read, the more Overteam is outright hell. And Lucium I'm really enjoying. It's pretty heavenly. Like, it's not perfect, but it's pretty heavenly. Viz got his Ollivander's moment when selecting the spear off the wall. Everything vibrated, it sort of spoke to him, and then everyone had a visceral response to Viz selecting that particular wizarding wand. Temper then got him in trouble again. Viz, bro, just calm down a little bit. Take a deep breath. You're undercover everywhere you go. You can't be losing your temper. He lost his temper again, got to have a nice fight scene. But in that, we got to see Viz then enter what I'm describing as his Neo phase. He started to believe he became this ultimate fighter. He did things that only he would be able to achieve if he was imbuing will, but he outright wasn't. He had normal coloured eyes. He wasn't imbuing will, and then he started to become a parcel mouth. Okay, not a parcel mouth exactly, but he started speaking another language. He became a vessel merely to communicate something from someone else. So I thought that was really interesting. Was that connection made through the spear that he had? Because apparently it was the dude who owned the spear. He was accusing old mate of killing him. I don't know. We'll explore that more for sure. That was sort of left very unanswered. We'll see what kind of comes of that going forward. Lucium feels a little bit more quaint than the other worlds, particularly Rez as well. Overteam is just out on its own island, right? But Rez and Lucium feels like it's 2 or 3 generations behind where Rez is. And I think my theory, my running theory is it is all about will and how will is used in these different worlds. As far as I can tell, you can't really imbue objects on Lucium, or at least not in the same way that you can on Rez. On Rez, you can create this amazing public transport system. We see that with the Transvex. That doesn't appear to exist on Lucium. Everyone's just getting around on horseback or on a boat or on their own two feet in a heartbeat, right? So same with agriculture. We just heard and had a whole bunch of beautiful chapters on Viz with the family, and he's just out working hard in the field, just ploughing his field, raking away one-armed. They are yet to be able to industrialize their agriculture. So if you can't feed more people and if you can't get to places quicker, trade is limited, which will naturally reduce the scale of your cities, reduce the size of the world that you have available to you. So that's my running theory with why Lucium feels far more quaint, is 2 to 3 generations behind Rez, and it all has to come down to being able to imbue other objects, because they're still currently working off only their own mental exertion or physical exertion. And so I think that is the limiting factor in this world. But yeah, that's fun. That's fun to look at, and we'll see if I'm true, see if it's true. Now on to Rez. Okay, so not only did Viz get his Ollivander's moment on Lucium, he also got his Harry's first broom flight lesson on Rez, where he was just naturally better than absolutely everybody else with the same amount of practice at imbuing rocks whilst blindfolded. He got to show off a little bit. And I'm okay with this. He's got one arm. He has to be able to show off in some way at some point. So well done, Viz. That was good fun. We then got to have the gladiatorial chariot race to the death. If I have to be critical, I didn't really like the setup to that gladiatorial race. I feel like the prods, the pushes provided by Iroh's father wasn't significant enough to actually elicit a response from Viz. I feel like Viz should have been able to shrug that one off. Having said that, I have 2 arms, and my mate didn't just die in my arms as I carried him out from something that I forced him to be involved in. So perhaps I would be on edge as well. So I'll give you the benefit of doubt here, but that setup felt a little bit lacking. I felt like I wanted something a little bit extra out of it. I liked the outcome. I like what we learnt through the process as well, and I liked Equa's involvement. On the subject of Equa, Indol and Equa are back, which I'm really pleased to see. I was getting concerned that we had just consigned a whole bunch of characters that I really liked just to the first novel. But these guys are back, and based on the conversations, the dropping of a stylus, the Quintus, and working together, I feel like these 2 are going to be prominent characters. I do have my concerns now that Amissa is going to be the one that's going to be consigned to a first book character. This has me concerned because I loved Amissa. Amissa was terrific. I really enjoyed her character. And I was keen to find out more. What were her motives? Because I feel like we've got a bunch left unanswered still. My theory with the books is you can't have that many strong, prominent females around your male protagonist. You've got Equa, who appears like she's going nowhere. Calidus' sister, Livia, is starting to play a more prominent role. And Amissa, can she come in? Can she still be that love interest? What does Equa then feel? So I'm keen to see what comes of this here. Last time I was on here, I said, give me 50 more pages and I want to see Indol. Give me 50 more pages. I want to see Amissa. We'll see how this goes. One of the really cool things that we got out of the chariot race, even though I didn't like the setup, was what Viz was able to identify and experience and actually then perfect when it comes to will. He was able to take Iroh's will from the chariot and absorb it himself. And so that's why the scene that occurred afterwards where Equa becomes the Quintus in lieu of Viz was kind of irrelevant. And if anything, it was actually really positive because it improves her capacity. She's now got 384 people. If Viz then gets stuck as a sectus with only 63 people, it kind of doesn't matter because what I gained out of that is that Viz is able to then absorb other people's will that they've imbued into objects. And as far as I can tell, he gets to keep that forever. What I find interesting and the thing that I'm unsure is that when Iroh makes his comeback, and he will he forever be just slightly below the level that he should be? Because he imbued a whole bunch of will into that chariot. Viz has taken that. And as far as I can tell, Viz has still got that. So what I feel like is going to happen is on the surface to everybody else, Viz is merely going to be a Septimus or a Sectus, one of the two, 8 people or 63 people ceding to him. But secretly, he's going to be running around to like Transvex and stuff and just being like, yep, I'll take that 1,000 people worth of will. Yeah, I'll take that out of there, please. And he's just going to secretly become this staunch human where at one point in time, there's going to be a pivotal fight scene to come. And he is just going to unleash all 44 million people's worth of will on that scene. And it's going to be devastating. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be that Neo moment where he turns sideways, gets bored, just defending and blocking the punches from Agent Smith. I'm looking forward to it. I'm keen to see that happen. So I've got a new theory, and that will is being cited, and it directly relates to what I've just said about Viz, is that the reason why we don't know who Car is Car is secretly just stealing will on res from imbued objects. That's where our missing will is going, is that Car is just absorbing that from other objects. That's my current little theory. We'll see how that plays out. And we have a new potential Car, and that is Equa's father, Advenius Claudius. There was something unique, and I haven't gone back to read it in WillOfTheMany, but something unique about the way Viz described his aura when he met him in book 1. And he immediately felt like he couldn't trust him. Now, that could have just been around the political intrigue and the quite clearly wasn't a fan of Ulkisor. So it could have just been that and the political maneuverings. But I feel like there's something about this guy. So I feel like he could be Car. I could work with that one. So at the moment, I've got Indol's father. It's not going to be Indol's father now that I've seen the role that Indol's playing and the lack of involvement. So he's like, I'm giving him odds of 10,000 to 1. Not going to be him. He's an outside chance, 10,000 to 1. Mr. Scarface. I don't think it's him either. That's 1,000 to 1 odds that I'll give old mate Scarface. Still not sure if he's meant to have a name, and I'm meant to know his name yet either. Scarface. Equa's father is going to come in here. He's 500 to 1. He's looking dodgy to me. You're looking like a potential subtle, will-absorbing car. And Viz's dad's still coming in at 400 to 1. I still think he's odds-on favourite to secretly be car, and Viz and his dad is going to have to battle it off at some point in time. I'm enjoying this. I'm keen to keep my betting odds going for who's likely to be car. People that have finished the book, you're laughing at me because I'm miles off. Car's probably going to be Viz. There you go. There's another one. All right. Enough of my random Aussie accented ramblings. I want to go back and continue reading. Until next time. Ciao. G'day, BookTube. You're back with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, for another vlog update on my reading journey for James Islington's StrengthOfTheFew. I'm really starting to build some momentum now. The storyline is starting to take shape. This 3-world system, we're seeing more crossover. We're seeing Viz finally start to accept who he is and his role in all 3 worlds now. I think last time I spoke to you guys, I was about 270 pages in. 410 is now the reading count. I'm well and truly past halfway. I think it's a 720-page book. I'm at 410, and I absolutely called one of the elements here. We'll get to that in a second. I'll do my victory lap in a second. I liked the method that I took on the last vlog, the last update, where I broke it down from world to world. That seems a cleaner way to do it, acknowledging that there is heaps of crossover, and quite deliberately so based on the way that Islington has written this story. But as I said, building momentum. And that was even when a lot of life happened over the weekend. I got stuck volunteering. It was quite disjointed. Not quite the momentum that I would have liked to have taken, but I can see the momentum building in this story. So we'll see if that carries through. We'll see if I can be a little bit more selfish at home and carve out some more reading time. Not that you guys get to know just how fast I'm reading it, but normally I'm faster through a book than what I'm currently being. So I'm finding that challenging as well. Just don't have the time to commit to it. I've tried to convince my wife that now that I'm doing a BookTube channel, that my job now as well is to read. That didn't land as well as what I would have liked it to. I'm not quite sure why. Let's start with Res. Ask and you shall receive is all that I'm going to say right off the top. I said in the last video that I've given you an ultimatum. I'm giving you 50 pages to reintroduce Amissa in some sort of significant way, or I'm just going to have to consign her to a first book character. 20 pages later, boom, Amissa comes straight back in, and we're seeing Viz and Amissa breaking down some barriers. She did stab him, after all, at the end of the first one, tried to kill him. So I can appreciate that it's been standoffish. It hasn't quite had that same chemistry that I really quite enjoyed in the first one. But you ask and you shall receive, and just as quickly you receive, it is taken away from you. At the end of that one scene, Islington makes it clear that we're not going to see her for, quote, a very long, long time. Part of my heart broke. It was really disappointing. I was excited to have Amissa back, but she's gone. Equa has well and truly taken over Amissa's role in this story. There's not the same affection as what you got between Viz and Amissa in The WillOfTheMany, but you're definitely getting the same sort of respect. That respect is genuinely there, and you're seeing that relationship become stronger, which is kind of cool. Like, I'm enjoying that. Why is Equa now taking the role that Amissa had? Perhaps it has to do with Equa's father. There's obviously some political maneuvering still to come from Advenius. So perhaps that's why Equa's now taking a stronger place. They did have those stronger bonds through the Numarchia and being on the same teams through the Eutychium. Perhaps that's what it is. I'm not sure, but I've had to accept. I shed a little tear, held a little vigil. It's okay. Amissa's now gone. We'll see if she comes back in some way. Not holding my breath. Bummer. Something that I think I might have gotten wrong, and it was all around the way that Viz can absorb somebody else's will that they've imbued into objects, and we saw that through Iroh and the chariot and the way that he was able to draw that back out. But then Islington's been teasing this whole, the smithing aspect, where Viz is quite clearly working on something, working on some metallurgy, working with metals in some way, and we saw that in this scene when they get back to Solivargus, and it's clear that Viz is now absorbing will, but instead of him taking it on himself and absorbing all of that imbued will, he's then transferring it into these triangle metal objects that he's storing on his person. He's built himself like this vest or a belt, and he's passing the will to that rather than to his person. Maybe I've got that wrong, but I feel like he's able to absorb it back into his person as well, because I feel like that's what happened in the chariot scene. So instead of him absorbing it and becoming secretly like Thanos, where you're just waiting for him to click at any moment, He's more like Sarzed from the Mistborn trilogy, where he's able to increase his strength, his size, his eyesight, his hearing, but instead of absorbing that into himself immediately, he then transfers it into his earrings, his rings, necklaces, jewelry, and the like, to then use at a later stage. Perhaps that's what's going on. That's the visuals that I was able to take from that one. I think I need to pay more attention the next time it comes up, because I think I misunderstood it, or maybe I hadn't. I'm not quite sure. Either way, I can still see what's coming, and I'm still looking forward to it. The big reveal where Viz is going to have 44 million people's worth of will on his person, and he's going to use that in a really dramatic fashion. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a Thanos click kind of moment, and I'm here for it. Well done, Islington. You've got me suitably excited on that one. On Solivargus, they immediately get a bit of a garbage reason for Viridius to leave them alone. Didn't quite pitch that well enough for me, but that's okay. Viz and Equa, they go off to the very first crypt that Viz first went to when he was in the stables, jumped up, and on the return, busted his hand up. So he's gone to that one there. And I admit, I didn't really follow what was going on there to the degree that I probably should have. Probably should have taken better notes. All we know that Oberteam is lost. Do not open the gate. Synchronous as death. I don't know who's talking, who they're talking to. Is this friend? Is this foe? What's going on? Not sure. Because Viz is synchronous. How is synchronous being death? Do not open the gate. All that I was able to get out of that one is the same visuals that we had on Oberteam when Viz went by himself back to the gold thrumming door before he went to Duat. Went to the door and he was going to have another crack at opening it, touching it, getting past the thrumming sensation that it was causing some post-traumatic stress symptoms for him. And then the young girl comes up to him and says, hey, don't open it. Death and destruction is on the other side of that gate. For anyone who opens it, death results for all of us. But I admit, the other bits where he then goes into a trance and starts talking, that was all lost on me. I read that over twice and was like, all right, I will just have to get the reveal later. I'm not going to understand absolutely everything. Perhaps the author hasn't revealed it, and that's why it was lost on me. But what took place immediately after that one? Yeah, Viz, well, he passed out again. It's kind of his modus operandi. The guy passes out in all things, except if he's in Oberteum and is pierced through the chest by Edward's sword arms. Then, for whatever reason, he's able to maintain the discipline to not pass out. That's like the most gruesome thing that's happened to the bloke this entire time. He didn't pass out into that one, but a feather falls on him and he passes out for 4 days. Viz, you got to sort this out. You do have some long-term trauma coming towards your skull. I have no doubt about it. No one can pass out this much and not have long-term trauma. But my favourite part about Rez in this section that I've just read is that Viz got himself a pet. He's got himself a pet wolf, a 7-foot-tall wolf to just stroll around next to him. Imagine how badass that's going to look. Him just strolling down the streets in Catan with the crowds all just like petrified running away as he's got a 7-foot wolf next to him. Big fan of that. Diago makes a return. He's able to develop this bond. Or interesting, he already has the bond. A very interesting thing is the way in which he can sense Diago. Why? I'm not quite sure. I haven't gone back and read. Was there some sort of transfer of blood or something? Because I've got this whole theory around the fact that there's something unique about Viz's blood. That dates all the way back to Melior, and I've got this big conspiracy theory relating to Viz's dad. I'm not quite sure how Diago the Alapai fits into this, but he can sense him for some reason. We've already seen that Viz can sense other people's will, but this is slightly different in that he can sense the animal as well. Not sure why, but either way, I'm here for it. He's got himself a pet. So that's Rez, now transferring across to Oberteum, the hellish landscape that it is. Viz is starting to really master his Galena control piece. He's just walking around grabbing overseers and anyone else that he needs to, and is really starting to nail it. It's becoming second nature for him. Viz is actually starting to make quite a bit of progress. Potentially too much progress. We saw some really interesting things with the young girl. That's got me all sorts of shades of spooky. I'm reminded of the movie, I think it's Snowpiercer, the one where everything's broken up into the trains and there's the car systems throughout the train and the little children are keeping the train running and they're doing that thing with their hands as it's going through that is serving their purpose. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm getting those types of vibes with the young girl who seemingly knows so much. Really interesting. There's more to be had there. I'm not looking forward to it. The abuse and misuse of children is not a topic that I'm here for, but I mean, the rest of the entire world is pretty macabre and backwards and hellish. So why not misuse children, right? Like, okay, if that's where we're going with this one, so be it. I'm starting to mentally prepare for it. Not going to enjoy it, but that might be what's to come on that one. But as I said, Viz is making probably too good a progress in Obertium. So I'm expecting some sort of surprise coming up here. Car won't be there, or I don't know, there's a surprise coming. Because as I said, too much good progress for Viz. As hard as it is, it's too good. He is also blatantly going to go for a swim in the poisonous water at some point in time. Hear me now, quote me later, Viz will end up in the poisonous water. He'll survive, but he'll probably pass out during the process. The other character we haven't seen in almost 150 pages is Cyril. Cyril's gone. The first book is all about discovering what happened to Cyril. We find Cyril, and then the guy is holier than thou. His emotional intelligence is terrific. He's honouring. He's infinitely patient. He's just far too optimistic for someone who has lived in Obertium for the last 7 years. And now all of a sudden he's just sacrificed himself, sends Viz off, hey, go do your thing, chosen one. I'm just going to exit stage left and not have anything to do with the story anymore. I have said for a while now that something's dodgy about Cyril. No one's that good. No one's that honourable. Here's a new theory that I've just come up with on the spot. Cyril, over the last 6 years, has already found and killed Car. Car doesn't exist in Obertium anymore. Cyril is actually in charge in Obertium. That doesn't make any sense at all, and my entire theory is underpinned by the fact that he's too nice. Yeah, maybe that's not how it's going to work. Cyril's got to have a bigger role to play. The guy seems too good. Like, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. He must have a greater role to play in this one. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Cyril, where are you going? Come back to me. You and Amissa, come back to me. Not together, though. I didn't want that. Just individually, in your own worlds, come back. And moving to my favourite world thus far, and that is Lyceum. Why is it my favourite world? I'm not sure. No, I like it. It's wholesome. It's a little bit more wholesome than the other two worlds, despite all of the killing that is no doubt still taking place, the tribal factions, the rivals, the very loose hold on leadership and power that King Ronan apparently has. The thing that's immediately apparent is the use of will doesn't seem to be as dramatised or as glorious as it is in the other two worlds. It's certainly not as macabre as what's going on in Obertium. It seems to be more reserved, more respectful. It is, in essence, like the use of the Force by the Druids. The Druids are the Jedi, right? They're these select few who are getting around and everyone respects them and reveres them. And they are the ones in which have this knowledge and know how to use it, but they use it in a very different way. We saw the fact that they used it for song, singing, very different to what's going on in the other two worlds. So that is interesting. I kind of like that. And here's the thing that I have absolutely called is I have said for a long time, there's something fishy, there's something unusual about Viz's family. Viz's dad has just made an appearance. Viz has just had his Harry Potter moment from the third book where he's looking across the lake and sees who he thinks is his dad cast Expecto Patronum. In Harry Potter, it was actually him. Spoilers on that one. However, this time round, I think it is actually Viz's dad. Perhaps Viz's dad exists in all three worlds. Perhaps Viz's dad has died on Res, but still exists on Lyceum and still exists on Obertium as Car. I think this is further entrenching Viz's dad as public enemy number one, most likely choice to be Car. As you would have figured out in the last one, had no idea how sweepstakes works or how assigning odds work. I'm just going to keep lowering the first number. I think that's how the whole premise works. He was 400 to 1. He's coming on in. He is 300 to 1. He is odds on favourite. He is my favourite to be Car. We're still building towards that state where Viz is going to have to face off against his dad, someone who has been shaped in every conversation. Every time we hear the mention of Viz's dad, he is good, he is honourable, he is infinitely patient. He stops everything that he's doing. He's intentional in his teaching moments with Viz in all of those flashbacks that we get. And look at the contrast between Viz's dad and the way he's treated to all other father figures. Mrs. Dad is completely useless. Equa's father is probably the one that's best portrayed at this point in time, but we still see his political manipulation as well. He's trash. Calidus's father wanted to be rid of him. Now he regrets it, but Calidus's father was absolutely trash. Iroh's father is useless. And Indol's father is useless as well. You see all these, the contrast here is clear and it's stark. All of these dads are utterly useless. They're selfish and they're after nothing but power. In comparison, you've got Viz's dad, who is good and knowledgeable and long-term thinking, all the things that you want. Perhaps that's because the dude is in fact Car and has all of the combined intelligence and moral power that comes with siphoning off 44 million people's worth of will. Perhaps that's why he is as good as he is. Perhaps he doesn't need to search for power because he is in fact all powerful. He is the God Emperor across all three worlds. This is the story that I'm building. You can see where I'm going for this. This is my running theory, and I'm here for it. I don't mind this storyline at all. Even if I have called it, you guys are all laughing at me because this is not how it's going to play out, but that's what I'm looking for. I like the family thing, and I guarantee Viz's sister's not dead. We did not close the door on that in the first one. She's going to make another appearance. Is it going to be Viz and his sister, I think it's Livia, powering up together to make the ultimate good decision to save everyone and defeat Dad? Or is it Viz going to have to overpower both of them combined? I don't know. We'll see how that goes. That's where I'm at the moment. 410 pages in. We're building momentum. I'm really enjoying this. For whatever reason, we need to compare and contrast when we're reading books. Is this one better than that one? Like, I've just recently done a tier ranking video, so I'm guilty of it as well. I read the very first Mistborn back to back with The Will of the Many, and reading them side by side, I actually preferred The Will of the Many to the very first Mistborn novel. I've since gone on to read the entire first Mistborn trilogy, and The Well of Ascension was quite a letdown in comparison to the other two stories. Hero of Ages was all time. But the context of Hero of Ages actually illuminated and made Mistborn so much better. And so that is standing heads and shoulders apart as a trilogy at this point in time. That's why I said I was nervous, because Islington has to stick this landing to justify what he introduced in The Will of the Many, because it'd be disappointing if he doesn't. But this is already shaping up to be a better second novel than what The Well of Ascension was. I feel like the scale just wasn't there. I didn't like the transition to political intrigue in The Will of Ascension. Elland venture, I wasn't as huge on him. And so comparing him to Kelsey, I feel like we lost something in that storyline. I'm enjoying this for everything that we've lost in terms of Amyssa's declining role, Calidus not being involved, Iden's declining role. We're making up in other ways, largely by having three independent Vizes. We get more and more of the good bits to go from there. So I'm enjoying this one. I'm going to stop talking to you now so I can go and keep reading. Until next time, ciao. G'day BookTube, you're back with Nick the Renaissance Bookman for another reading update in my vlog for James Islington's Strength of the Few. Where am I up to now? 530 pages in. This last section completely ruined all of my theories. My odds are out the door. I would go bankrupt as a bookie. 90% of the theories that I had were debunked over the last 100 pages. I feel like a little bit of a fool. I'm now going to laugh at myself along with everybody that's been laughing as I've been making these predictions, but it's been quite enjoyable. Rez really took it to another level over these last 100 pages. So much so that I was really disappointed at certain times when we would cut back to Lyceum or cut back to Obertium. I found myself almost skim reading, trying to find my way back to Rez, because what was about to go down on Rez was going to be amazing. And you could just tell we were building towards something. But just like that, we'll start with Lyceum. I really enjoyed the camaraderie, the brotherhood. My favorite one was, "You are here now. We are all with you, brother." That one really hit home. And just the setting in which it was, that around the campfire after they've gone out and they've gone into battle, that bonding moment where they've got that newfound respect because it's not just theoretical anymore, they've just done it. You find with most footy teams and what have you, that overcoming those odds and having a really defining victory, it galvanizes a team. And we saw that with that tight little group. And the honesty that then flowed out of that was actually really quite wholesome and really enjoyable. It's also, what else did we learn? We learned that druids can quite clearly control the Alapai on Lyceum. And we're seeing that now with Viz on Rez as well. I was really excited last video. He got himself a new puppy, and it's quite clear that there is some sort of imbuing going on. Viz was always able to sense the will that's being used around him, and he could sense Diago, his pet puppy, from in the bushes. And it was quite clear that there was some sort of will thing happening there. And he commented as well when he was on Solovargus that it felt different. The sensation that he was feeling when he could sense Diago was different to that of when he was sensing someone else's will. And it's evident that this is a Lyceum-based use of will. This is something unique to that world. It was really funny. drew parallels to the third Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, where Harry sees himself across the lake and assumes that it's his father. And I said we had another one of those moments where Viz saw someone that reminded him of his father. And then when we saw in this 100-page section that Viz can travel between worlds with old mate Scarface using the thrum stuff that he does, where he disappears, he can travel through worlds and travel to where he wants to go. More on that later. I was like, oh, there's an outside chance here that it was a Harry Potter moment where Viz actually just saw himself in Lucium, two versions of himself. But I still think odds-on favourite here is that it's going to be his dad, and his dad's going to be alive and well hanging out in Lucium. 20 pages later, I'm not quite sure I could use the phrase alive and well to describe Viz's dad. This 100 pages completely ruined my whole thing. It appears I'm no longer going to get my Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Dad v Son showdown that I thought we were building towards. I was looking forward to that as well because Viz is just such a morally sound character. And if he had to pit himself against his father, I thought Islington was going to go something like off the reservation and have like an anti-hero pivot where Viz actually just aligns with his dad and makes himself God Emperor of everything. And we were going to have a Paul Atreides downfall despite the fact that we've built him up over the last 2 books. So I was here for that and I was ready for that. And I was actually probably going to really enjoy that storyline. But it appears that's not what's going to happen at all. So it completely threw out my theory as well that there was something uniquely special about Viz's blood and Viz's family and that heritage as to why he was so unique and could bridge that force field around Melior right in the start of the first book. But all we got out of this section so far is that there was nothing particularly special about Viz outside of the fact that he's highly capable. And there was nothing particularly special about his family outside of the fact that they happened to stumble upon knowledge of the Cataclysm and pre-Cataclysm technology. So it was caught them by chance. Like, yes, they're a good and honourable people and they served their people well. And Viz's dad is still put up on a pedestal of this amazing, the solo main father figure that is worth any merit throughout this whole story. So like, yes, morally, they are quite sound and strong characters and a strong family, but that has kind of happened upon the knowledge by chance. A storm blew their ship off and they ended up on Stella Vargas, discovered the tombs themselves and studied it. Not too dissimilar to what Viridius is doing. So that was kind of Lucium. Viz is obviously now going to get to hang out with his dad, talk to his dad. Not quite alive and well, but talk to him. It was really interesting that I just didn't pick up on that when we had our scene where Missa comes back and he gets to talk to the Anguis guy. I was just super excited that Missa was back and it looked like she was about to start to pick up her previous role that she had. So I completely missed the angle that we could take with that technology and how, if military has always had that, how it would be super tempting for them just to roll around, just kill everyone and ask questions later. Because you can do that. You can just walk in the room, start shooting people, and then go, oh, okay, now let me figure out if you're guilty or not. And the warped sort of motivations that leads to, super ripe for corruption. And I think we've seen that take place. Looking forward to Lucium, but it's not nearly as cool as what was happening on Res. Before we get to Res, though, let's go to Obertium. So Obertium, I gave a little teaser before. I am not a fan of the child exploitation piece. I get it. And it is essentially what I was visualizing when I gave that reference to Snowpiercer. Could have been worse as well, but it was there and you feel a bit icky in that scene. But I finally got one thing right. Out of this whole thing, I got one thing right. Viz is going for a swim. He's going to go for a swim in the toxic water. He's going to grow 3 eyes, second head, and we're going to see how that goes. So I'll tell you one thing of Viz. He's got a wildly high pain threshold. For as much as I give him slack about passing out in every other scene, he quite clearly has a high pain threshold for something that's killing other people. And yes, I know he's got the scarab on and all that sort of good stuff, but he just puts himself into it. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 10 minutes, 15 minutes and onwards. And now he's just going to dive headfirst into this thing, despite the fact that Seeror was like, dude, do not ever do this. Do not consider it. You will just drown underneath there in pain and agony. I guess we're about to go back and find Seeror. I said this before, I felt like I was skim reading Lucium and Obertium because I wanted to get back to Res. And I completely missed as to why we are now leaving Duat and going back outside to do something to then come back inside the city. Completely missed that. So I guess I'm just going to be a passenger in this next phase of the story. I'm just along for the ride in Obertium. I've got no theories, and it's probably not worth me putting my theories out there because all of them have been false thus far. So well done, Islington, leading me down the garden path only to do something different. Okay, let's come back to Res. because res is where all the action took place in this 100 pages. This is where it had really strong momentum, amazing scenes, and just like ripped your face off at different times. So the first thing I'll say is I had completely the wrong imagery in my mind when it came to Viz's chest plate and his belt device that he had created. I thought it was going to be just a replica of what Sazed did in the Mistborn series. And that's what I thought it was going to be. It was going to be hidden, and that's not what it is at all. I thought it was really quite elegant, the way that through harmonics, he was able to basically make it an extension of himself. I thought that was really quite cool. I also loved the fact that he could then turn them into flying weapons to intimidate, to potentially kill, or to at least hold someone captive as well, with these like sharp obsidian blades holding at somebody's neck. It reminded me quite a bit of the Yakka arrow from Guardians of the Galaxy, minus the high-pitched squealing whistle, which I'm glad isn't there. But that was really quite cool. And the thing that I loved the most about it, that scene when Reliquia brought Viz to Scarface. Scarface has a name now, Ostius, or I don't like that. I like Scarface. We're rolling with Scarface from this point forward. And that scene where he then reveals how he then extends out and creates the arm, gives him the finger, creates that mask. This was the first time that I feel like any of the adults actually looked at Viz as something other than a child. People have respected him, but it's just been, yeah, well done, little princeling. You've got some plucky courage. In that scene, he absolutely had the respect of Reliquia and Scarface. And it was a real different, pivotal moment. Let me find some of it. So when he reveals what he's able to do with the harmonics, we hear from Reliquia. God's graves, Reliquia stares at me with what I think is a newfound respect. Indeed, murmurs Ostius, a glint in his eye as he examines me. How much control do you have? And then he comes down, he's like, oh, you are fun, my boy. Relative harmonics, I assume. And then he does his whole reveal of what it exactly is. And then we read down later. And your mask? Ostius has finished his inspection, though still looks almost childlike in his apparent delight in my ingenuity. And this is a different tone that we see for the first time when describing Viz. Intimidating, memorable, yes, this will do nicely. And we see that Ostius is constantly giddy with joy at how awesome Viz has been in this moment, and the power that he quite clearly has and how creative he is. What Viz does 30 pages later, I say 30 pages because we go straight into action and then it's paused so that we can go and spend 30 pages on Lyceum and Obitium. This was the first time that I've been frustrated by the three disparate storylines, is because it broke the momentum. I was like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? And felt like I just wanted to skip through until I saw the little symbol again and be like, okay, cool, I'm back on res. That was the first time I've ever really been frustrated by it. But the wait was worth it. I absolutely loved that scene in the Basilica. Let's go now to the footage that I filmed 10 seconds after finishing that scene.
Boy, oh boy, wowee. Not what I was expecting. That is not how I expected that scene to play out. The Basilica, the blood, the rage, the death. Not what I was expecting at all. But it was awesome. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Can't even begin to think what the consequences are right now. That was epic. Let's go. Ciao.
Boy, oh boy, wowee indeed. That was my honest response. It did not play out how I thought it was going to. It was so much more gorish. I thought it was going to be just an intimidation piece and the political intrigue was going to continue after that. And there was going to be a whole bunch of infighting as they were stabbing other people, trying to figure out who it is that's behind the mask. But not at all. We unmask Viz, we find out exactly who he is, and then good old Diago just goes postal. I was not ready for it at all, but we saw what Viz was going to be capable of, where he just absorbed over 100,000 people's capacity worth of will into both him and into his rig that he's now got, his Winter Soldier arm that you can picture. That was really cool. My favorite part about all of that almost was the imagery upon entry into that round room, where they described the room as, this is a room where decisions are made. Men die and empires fall. I loved the imagery that single sentence built when Viz first walked into the circle room where military's hierarchy is all hanging out. I was picturing a World War II situation room where You've got Churchill and all his generals pushing big, massive arrows around on the map with the viewing platform up above as everyone's watching down upon it as well. It's where men die, decisions are made, and empires fall. I really enjoyed that imagery. And the scene that followed after that did that imagery justice. As I said in the short little clip, I've got no idea what the consequences are from here. The complete civil war, there's unrest. The top half of military's hierarchy and pyramid is now just gone, right? There is a vacuum. If you look at any type of warfare, when you cut off the head, it creates a leadership void and chaos ensues. You almost want your adversary to have some form of structured leadership because it makes their responses far more predictable. When you cut off those top echelons, you just don't know what type of crazy is going to fill that void. I can't even remember the number of people that are dead in this moment. I'm pretty sure we've lost Imdal's father, a whole bunch of people. Princeps is gone as well. So like the top of military's pyramid is just gone. That's like, what is it, like 42,000 people imbued to him or ceded to him, and that is all just now gone, and that's just been filtered out. I was shocked to discover that Viz didn't keep all of the will with him. I thought he was just going to walk around like a Terminator from that moment onwards and end up as that God Emperor, having taken out the top third of every single one of the pyramids, including Calidus's father and Mrs. Dad and a whole bunch of really interesting things. I thought we were getting towards an anti-hero type situation, and that's not how it played out as well. So my little predictions about where we're going have all been wrong. I think I might just come along for the ride for the next 50 pages until I can form some sort of new opinions on things, because all that happened over the last 50 is all my opinions were broken, were debunked, proven to be false. It shows that Islington is the storyteller, not me. So that's been good though. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. We're getting really close towards the end here, business end of the book. This is shaping up as quite an action-orientated second book. If it's going to be a trilogy, I can't remember. I remember listening to an interview with James Islington at some point in time where he said, he doesn't want to call it a trilogy because he knows what he wants to achieve, and that might take more than 3 books. I'm not sure if he's walked that back now that he's finished the second, whether or not it is going to be 3 books. But either way, say it is a trilogy. This has been a very action-packed second book. There's a fair bit happening. It doesn't read like merely a connection between your opening idea and the conclusion that you want to form. So I think Islington's doing really well here. We'll see how this goes. I'm enjoying it. This is still a really strong recommendation so far. I'm excited to see where this goes next. Until next time, ciao. All right, BookTube, you're back with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, for my final update on my reading blog for James Islington's second book in the Hierarchy series, The Strength of the Few. Last time I spoke to you, I was on page 530-ish, and I've now continued on to the end, to page 707. So we've had 170 pages in between drinks, and a lot has happened in all 3 worlds. We're going to start on Lyceum. As is the case on all 3 worlds, death appears to be completely irrelevant. It does not seem to matter when lead characters or key figures die, because they're going to come back in some way or another. Having said that, Dad's second act does appear to be his last. While everyone appears to get at least 2 bites at the cherry, dying twice appears to be the limit. So Dad has played his role in this storyline. We actually finally get to meet King Christoval. We got to meet Dad. Dad had that key moment. He got to have that courage moment again with Viz as he saved Viz once again. And so that was nice. That's a throwback to the opening line in the WillOfTheMany. Opening line, opening paragraph thereabouts, which was absolutely top notch. I reviewed the opening lines or opening sentence of every single book that I've read thus far in 2025, and that opening line from the WillOfTheMany was one of only 2 that made it to the S tier. That was terrific. Go and watch that whole video if you're interested in that type of thing. Now, I also learned something again. I'm constantly learning stuff. I've got misunderstandings all over the place, which is okay. I have no issues not having my hand held through a book and instead having to discover things and correcting misunderstandings and errors that I've been making in terms of my understanding of the world or the magic system. And this one was about the magic system. So on Lyceum, it appears that you can form some sort of mind connection with someone through an object that they've imbued will into.
I believe there's a mind-body spirit connection.
And we see it from the Druids and the way that they imbue will into their weapons, into their staff. I didn't pick up on it the first time. I thought it was, in fact, the first time that Viz fought Golkabar after he had his Ollivanders moment where he selected the staff or the staff selected him. And I thought he entered this full Neo phase. And this was what it was going to be synchronous, where you were just going to be heads and shoulders better than everyone, irrespective of will. And that's where I thought that was going. And I was cool with that because I love the Matrix. However, we saw on Viz v Golkabar version 2, as soon as Viz picked up Lear's staff, Lear, L-I-R, that dude, the second druid, as soon as he picked up his staff, immediately there was that mind connection. And Lear was able to communicate with him, actually able to imbue Will into Viz and talk him through what was to come. It appears that he was outside of time in his understanding of what was taking place and what was about to come. So that was fascinating. I completely missed that. And I had to get it handed to me a second time round, slapped on the face for me to actually understand that one. And that's okay. I haven't really thought through what the implications of that is going to be, but it's just another example where death is not the end of the characters that we've come to love. I'll put a little asterisk on that phrase. More on that later. Throughout these 170 pages on Lucium, Viz and Tara formed a bit of a kinship as such, and it was all around the mutual respect and honor that they had for their fathers. I've already talked a little bit about how there are not many like Dad of the Year nominees going around in this story so far. I'd be interested to know a little about Islington's past with his dad, but no, that's getting too personal. Whereas Tara seems to have like a really honorable father, King Ronan. So they're able to form a bit of a kinship there, and that's nice. Tara's one of the few characters that we've really developed a little bit more of an understanding of, and a little bit of a relational equity is sort of built between Viz and Tara. And so I think Tara is going to play a more prominent role in Lucium in particular going forward. Now, Seeror's appearance within the Lucium world took me by surprise. I was actually subtly thinking that Ruark was going to be Ostius, Scarface, as I've been calling him on Lucium. And that was really emphasized to me when Ostius was able to travel between Lucium and Res. And I was like, that's why. This dude was once synchronous. He's no longer is. I'll explain what my theory is to that later. And this is who I thought was actually going to be him. I was getting ready for him to be chief bad guy in the Lucium world and potentially chief bad guy overall. Because the dude is dodgy as all get out, right? Then all of a sudden Seeror appeared. That was an interesting reveal that I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I think Viz's response to meeting Seeror was a little bit rash, a little bit out of character potentially, or at least that's how I felt in the moment. It wasn't until I reflected on it that I'm like, maybe it was justified. Lucium was the world in which Viz most felt at peace. He had discovered a home. He had trusted people. He got to meet his dad again. He formed genuine friendships built around trust and respect. He was trying to find a way to settle down. He thought he had escaped the past that he was running from, or at least embraced it and let people in behind this big, massive curtain that he had shut up in front of him throughout all of WillOfTheMany. And Ruark was the puppet master throughout all of the Lucium world, trying to pull that down. Kabar sided with him. Ruark seemed to be the antagonist, the one that was out to get Viz, hunting him down, trying to kill him. In the context of that, maybe it's justified. But perhaps this highlights one of the issues that I had overall with the book, and that was one around momentum. Because I didn't necessarily notice that because I wasn't looking at Lucium in isolation. When you've got those competing storylines, some of that gets watered down. And it wasn't until I sat back and analysed everyone's motivations post last page, at page 708 essentially, was I able to see the fact that, perhaps that wasn't out of character. Perhaps that was, in fact, justified. So they're my thoughts around Lucium. The magic system is different. I didn't understand it. It wasn't until right at the end that I was able to appreciate what was going in the magic system. Over to Obertium. First and foremost, how morbid and disturbing was the water purification scene? Vec, rotting God's graves, man. I thought Viz was just going to burn the whole thing to the ground because that was disturbing. And in actual fact, he might have, just unbeknownst to him. Right at the end there where he kills Carr, we've got no idea what the consequences of that. Carr in there, like what we see of Carr is that he is asleep. We hear that from Kaya as well, is that he is likely to be asleep. And he's in this room surrounded by notes and study material. I was getting real heavy Mistborn Lord Ruler vibes as soon as that door opened and you could see what was going on in there, where I have no doubt that Carr in Obertium is doing some dodgy things. Some really morally unsound decisions are made where he is ostracizing people. He is taking advantage of people, but perhaps only because he's trying to hold a greater evil at bay. That was the vibes that I got. I don't know if anyone else was getting those vibes. We'll see if that comes to fruition. So I'm really not sure what the outcome here is by Viz actually being successful in that mission there. He wasn't successful much throughout most of this book, but that one, he was actually building momentum. He was achieving things and kind of going it alone. Like, yeah, he had his guide, he had his help, but didn't have those friends coming alongside him. Single will user was an interesting one. Now, one thing that I was disappointed about on Obertium is I was looking forward to a massive fight scene. I wanted to see, as soon as Viz got the Mutalis weapons, that's what I'm calling them, the Mutalis weapons, what Melior had, I've decided is a Mutalis weapon, the thrum machine. So I've decided that the crook and flail were another Mutalis weapon. As soon as he got them and I understood what they could and could not do, I was totally ready for Viz to be like, I'm indestructible. I don't need any more will. I've just got my blood imbued into these things, and because it leans into my theory that there's something uniquely special about Viz's blood, but that's probably not true. I'm just barking up the wrong tree there. But I was looking forward to him to just go, you know what, Gleaners, come at me. 1v15, just death match, and Viz was going to annihilate them all and just bring hate and discontent on absolutely everyone that comes near him. I didn't get that. We did get to see a little bit of that rage that Viz has been threatening to spill over, but I didn't get to see that massive fight scene. That's okay. I'm not the author. It played out just a little bit differently to how I thought it was going to. And interestingly here, there was no reemergence of Cyril. I was really convinced that as soon as Viz went through the toxic waterways that he was going to be able to reconnect with Cyril, and I was going to learn a little bit more about him, because I've raised some questions about him and I still have some questions going forward about Cyril's role in the story. Is the dude good or is he not good? He was so honourable. He was so understanding, so reasonable with Viz, almost to a fault. But we did learn in Cyril's absence that he definitely did, in fact, lie to Viz on at least 2 occasions. He said that he felt and knew that the Lucian version of himself was dead. Now, that proved to be not true. He might not have known and just thought that was what was taking place, but I think that was an outright lie. We also discovered that Netocrates' guide did not in any way help a Yunkti or anyone of that description escape from Duat. Kaya was like, this hasn't been done. There are no actual villages out there. There are no other settlements. One hasn't been discovered in 600 odd years. So I was expecting more out of Cyril. Stay tuned though for my theories relating to him. Okay, so that's enough about Obertium. Let's come back to Res. Now, I think Islington missed a huge trick on Res, and it all relates to the Carnifax storyline. I wanted to see him really develop and demonstrate to us that relationship with the Octavian. I wanted to see Viz as Carnifax use adoption to basically bring down a transvect, take all of that will from hundreds and hundreds or thousands of people and then destroy a whole bunch of Quintus or something that were threatening Octavi, or perhaps even blow up the transvex, something really monstrous like that. Embrace that more deep imagery that we were seeing there a little bit about this guy being a bit of a myth and being feared by everyone, but revered by the Octavi, the little guy. I wanted to really lean into the I'm here to help the little guy storyline. But that's okay. I'm not writing the book, and so that's not what we saw. But I think it was a missed opportunity. There was also a terrific quote, one that really stuck out to me. And it's as Viz is helping out Lannister, and it's something that Lannister says here on page 621. Quote, "For things like this to happen, Viz, it takes a special kind of cowardice from both commander and soldier." So this quote comes from Lannister as she and Viz are musing on who is to blame from all of these blood-soaked sappers just after Viz has broken her out. And it reminded me instantly of a book that I've read a couple of years ago, The Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning, which provides a harrowing insight into Polish police battalion that carried out the Nazi Germany's extermination and genocidal orders, killing thousands upon thousands of Jewish non-combatants. And we already knew that the commanders were evil. That's unequivocal. We already knew that. Browning's book, just like Lannister's comments, highlights just how cowardly the soldiers are with their docile obedience. If you are someone who has said, oh, they're just following orders, and they would have been killed had they not followed out their commander's orders. Well, unfortunately, Browning's book tells a different story. So go and check that out if you're someone who has ever said that about people that were outworking those orders. The contrast in Viz's response between Reliquia and Olkisor when it comes to the Sapper scene was really interesting. You see, one of them used, abused, manipulated Viz for their own selfish desires, whereas the other used, abused, and manipulated Viz for their own moral imperative. Yet he had a very different response. And I think that comes down to the outcome of what took place following that manipulation. In one example, Viz's life is threatened. In the other example, Viz's friend is in fact killed. And I think that's telling. And I had to ask myself, could I forgive someone who threatened my life? Now, would I forgive that same person if they instead threatened my wife's? And I think the answer is no. And so that's why I find that one really telling. That would be an unpopular decision by Viz for a lot of readers, and I can understand if that one turns people off. But in that context of flipping it and asking those questions, given the consequences, I think we can understand Viz's motivations a little bit better. Now, the death of Iquot really took me by surprise. And the thing that I got out of that more so than anything, I think her death is final, by the way. I think there's no second act on that one. But the thing that I got out of that one is just the mismatch, the power imbalance in this will-based magic system. Iqua was a Quintus, and so she had she had 384 people acceding to her. In comparison, Iroh's father had 7,704 people as a Quartus. They were truly powerless to stop him and what he was trying to achieve. Now, adoption levels the playing field a little bit, but all it does is rebalances, redistributes will. It doesn't overcome that power imbalance. Now, I do wonder if embracing the concept of being synchronous is able to overcome this math equation. I'm wondering if that's where it's going to go. If not, it's just a really potentially one-sided magic system. Iden is a legend. We all need friends like Iden. Don't need to say much more about that one. And just as we saw on Obertian and Lucium, death is apparently irrelevant. Death is a doorway or words to that effect. That seems to be holding true on all three worlds at this point in time. Death appears to be irrelevant, so maybe outside of Equa, don't get disappointed if someone dies. The lovers of math would have really been able to nerd out with the power laws that was at play in that final Yunkti regeneration scene. However, it does end up just becoming a race to the bottom as far as I'm concerned. Whoever can find the most will to cede to them ultimately wins, unless being synchronous is able to circumvent that whole math equation. We'll see. I'm holding out hope that that's exactly what it's going to be, but we'll see. I think some people will say, oh, too convenient. Irrespective of what the enemies were doing, he was able to work around them. But I think I need that in this magic system. Now on to my final summary, and then we'll jump into some theories that I've got because they've all proven to be true thus far. Not at all. Most of my theories have been wrong. But overall, so this is a plot-centric book. In committing to go to this three-world system, Islington was asking a lot out of this second book. Quite often sequels have got this issue where they're just a means to get from the idea to the conclusion. This isn't going to be a trilogy, as I understand it. This will be 4 books. But this one had a lot of ground to cover. This felt like the Two Towers, and we had a lot of ground to cover. As a result of needing to develop, not only continue this one res storyline, but then needing to develop 2 new worlds, 2 new characters to go along with it, and develop 2 new magic systems, essentially, or their own versions of the magic system, was asking a lot. Something had to give. And it was the character development that did, in fact, fall short in this book in comparison to the first. The 3 Vizes were distinct enough, and they had moments of divergent character development. But I think Islington did leave some potential on the page. For example, the political intrigue of Res could have made that version of Viz slightly more conniving, slightly more manipulative, as political situations often do. The hellish Arrakis could have made Viz even more practical than what he ultimately ended up being. Kaya was an interesting one. We almost got to the practical element that I'm describing, but it could have been even more so. And there was reluctance in Lucium by Viz, but it could have been even more so. I guess that's what it was. It's like Islington touched on a few of these different divergent characters, but he just didn't take it to the extreme where it was really obvious to us, to the point where Viz from another world would look at the decisions being made by himself on this other world and be like, I disagree with you. You've got no idea what you're doing. I don't know who you are. I think that's what I was after, and it was lacking just slightly. The side characters also didn't get the development that you might want. Tara, we got close. Cyril, we were getting close, and the dude completely disappeared. But the thing that most people are going to have issues with, and I've committed a whole bunch of words already in this vlog too, is how characters from the first book, ones that we actually really formed good relationships with, were just completely cut from the story. And when they did feature, they weren't actually adding anything to it. We weren't deepening their background stories. Missa was the big one for me. Indol was another one as well. We lost Calidus, but Calidus is back, so that's quite fine. I can't begrudge him for having someone dead during the entire book. But those two in particular, I wanted to see more. Ulkisor as well. Even Viridius. We got a little bit around Viridius, and I still don't know what to think of this guy. But probably Missa, Indol, and Ulkisor. They're the three that I was really hoping we could develop further. And we just didn't. And so I think that's going to be my biggest gripe with this book. And the thing that stops it ultimately being a 5-star book, an S-tier quality book. You can also probably tell that Islington wrote these books, or at least the stories within this book, as in linear fashion. I didn't get the vibe that he was bouncing storylines off each other, building on them concurrently. I got the vibe that he wrote this story in isolation, and then the next one, and then the next one, because at times when he cut between, it felt a little bit jarring. And in particular, the Basilica scene, which was the best scene in the entire book as far as I'm concerned, that was a highlight for me. But we were made to wait 30 pages after it was introduced so that we could cut across to these other worlds, which weren't firing on all cylinders at that point in time. They were a step back. And so that was jarring. And that moment in particular lost me a little bit. And I think it was telling, the fact that I wasn't able to keep up with Viz's motivations on Lucium, as well as what I would have if that was just one consistent storyline. And so I don't know if that's Islington's fault or it's my own fault. Because I also found, so something that I do when I read books is I'll read the book, but I'll also be listening to the audiobook. And so I'm normally about 100 pages in front on my physical read and then listening to it when I'm doing chores around the house, when I'm mowing lawns, whenever driving in the car or whatever it looks like. And it was only during the audiobook listen that I was able to pick up on a whole bunch of stuff that I missed when reading. And I think it had something to do with the disjointed nature of the three worlds. Perhaps I'm just laying into it a little bit because it was different. It was a bold decision to make, and good on you as well, Islington, for being brave enough to actually try something so distinctly different. The WillOfTheMany leaned heavily into tropes, and it felt homely as a result of that. We could recognize different tropes that he was using, and it was an easy story to follow as a result of that. It was still terrific. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The world building, the Roman-inspired world was terrific, and everything that came with it. The magic system we know and love, the characters we love, but it was a safe book. The second book here and what he's tried to achieve with 3 concurrent storylines, 3 concurrent main protagonists with still first-person POV, but their own developing characters underneath them, that was brave and well done. Kudos to you for trying that. I think we just missed a fraction every now and then. One thing I really do like about this book is that Islington does not hold your hand in any way. We have finished this book and I still have no flipping idea who the chief bad guy is. I spent this entire video making predictions and theories around what I thought was about to happen. And I reckon maybe 1 out of the 25 that I've verbalized have actually come true. And that's okay. I'm not upset by this at all. So overall, I actually really enjoyed this book. I have held off on listening to anybody else's opinions and their reviews on the book because I wanted this to be as pure as possible. So as soon as I finish recording this, I'm probably going to go binge like 4 or 5 interviews with Islington and just as many reviews and takes from people that I respect on BookTube as well. So we'll see if they pick up on the same apparent shortcomings of this book, or at least my opinions of where it was lacking in comparison to the first. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this. It moved the story along. I lost some characters, but I gained some others, and I got a more involved magic system. The fact that I don't know who my chief bad guy is unusual, but I'm totally okay for it, and I am here to discover. I like the fact that I get to make predictions, and I don't know if they're going to come true. They're not going to come true. And on that, though, let's jump into some theories so we can all laugh at me in 18 months' time when the 3rd book in the Hierarchy series drops, and we'll see how we go.
He's doing it again.
This again?
So theory number one, Zero is actually the chief bad guy. Stay with me on this one. So I spoke about earlier on that I had my doubts about him. He was just a little too nice, too honourable, too understanding. And I'm like, I just don't think anyone that lived by themselves on this hellish Arrakis landscape in Obertium would be this nice, this understanding, and this well put together still. The dude's been living in a tomb and he's totally okay. Hasn't lost it from a mental perspective at all. Yeah, no, I'm calling garbage on that one. You absolutely would be a shell of a human living by yourself essentially with a whole bunch of Yunti for 7 years, or a whole bunch of dudes that do not speak your name, don't even want to look you in the face. Yeah, I've got my eyes on you, Cyril. And so I was low-key expecting Cyril to have already killed Carr and he to be manipulating Viz in some way. He might have still been manipulating Viz to, in fact, kill Carr. I just thought Cyril had already done it. So that was one that I probably missed out on, but I think the other half of that theory still holds true. And we also learned that Cyril did, in fact, lie to Viz. Unequivocally, he lied to Viz. He told him that he can remember the moment at which the version of himself on Lucium died, and yet we got to meet him. So that just didn't take place. We also were told that Netocrat helped get someone out of Duat, and then that was how he was able to learn all about the underground system. I think that to be false as well, because Netocrat was like just outright, no one has ever left here. Why would anyone leave here? Kaya was like, there are no communities that live out there, which brings Cyril's community into question as well. Whoa, are they all Yunti? Is that what's going on there? Has he created this false world and just bringing Viz into it, bringing anyone that is able to get through the gate, anyone that is able to become synchronous, get them through, indoctrinate them into this world, and then just release them at Carr, and probably just end up dead on the end of a Gleaner's Edward scissor arm. I've also got like huge questions around his mentor, and I have a theory around who his mentor is later. We'll come to that. But that's my first theory. I believe Cyril to actually be our chief bad guy. There is a chance, so on Lucium, he was super dodgy on Lucium as well. Ruark spent the entire story hunting Viz. He aligned himself with Golkabar, who was the dodgiest individual that we came across in this entire second book. And he ends up killing the Honourable King Ronan as a result of aligning himself with Golkabar. So despite that scene where he comes across as being quite reasonable to Viz, I think he still could be dodgy there as well. And this one's a little bit more of a stretch, but we are currently relying on Viridius's word only to know that Cyril is dead on res. And I'm not convinced we can trust Viridius yet either, nor is Viz. Viz is like, oh, he comes across as genuine, but is he? And we have had that in every single moment throughout the first book and the second. I'm not convinced Viridius is good. I think Viridius could be in cahoots with Cyril. Cyril is in fact synchronous. People don't know this, but he is in fact synchronous, and he is our chief bad guy. It's not Carr. It's not the Concurrence or anyone else. It is Cyril being chief bad guy. And if it is, it won't be Viz that kills him. It'll be his brother. Ulkisor will in fact kill him, giving a chef's kiss moment where he will also say to Brutus, and we will get our Cyril-Caesar comparison really driven home, and that will be the final scene in book 4. Or at least if this theory holds true.
That's your theory.
Theory number 2, because there's probably no chance that that one's going to be right, is that we're actually going to have 3 independent bad guys. The worlds can develop their own characters, and it appears that the decisions that they make in those worlds, whilst they advance your understanding the magic system, don't appear to bleed over in terms of the character development. And we saw that with Viz. So that's going to be one of my theories as well, is that we're going to have 3 independent bad guys. Carr is a potential there. I've already said Cyril has to be a bit of a potential there. I think Ostius is as dodgy as all get out. We still don't know this guy's motivations. And I also think that Viz could become an anti-hero. I'm really wanting this to be the case. It's probably not going to be the case. I wanted Viz's dad to be the bad guy as well, and that is quite clearly not going to be the case. And so now I'm just going like father, like son. Perhaps Luke Skywalker is the one that's going to be evil here. I don't know, but I think there is a chance, just because of the disparate worlds, is that we end up with 3 unique bad guys that Viz has to overcome.
Sounds plausible.
My third theory is around Ostius, and it's just projecting some of the gaps that we've currently got in knowledge around him. I think Ostius was once synchronous. We learn in the Basilica scene that he got sent to Solidargus to try and find the weapon, to seek something out, to make the decisions so that the other princeps couldn't make them, whatever it was. And I think he became synchronous in that moment. I also think that Ostius was in fact Yusuf, Cyror's mentor and chief guide on Obertium. Ostius makes the comment when he first gets in and starts talking to the military princeps, his uncle, and he says, what has it been, 9 years? And we know that Cyror has been on Obertium for 7 years. The timeline kind of holds out, and I think Yusuf was in fact Ostius, and I think Cyror kills Ostius. So I think he's no longer synchronous, and that is why he can't travel to Obertium as well. He can only travel between Lucium and Res. So that's my running theory with Ostius, just filling in the gaps on some of the data that we don't currently have for this guy. Still don't know what his motivations are. Outside of being pissed off at his family for being greedy, I don't know what his motivations are. He's genuinely coming across like Heath Ledger's The Joker as well from the Batman series, which would be good fun. That was good fun. Crazy, but good fun. Theory number 4, and I don't know if I like this one, but it comes down to, I've been trying to make sense around Diago, the Alapai, and how he just is not behaving like everyone thinks that he should. He takes what should be a fatal blow with the spear on Res as he tries to protect both Viz and Iden, yet he barely bleeds as well. Why does he barely bleed? Why does the blow not kill him when it really should? Why hasn't he grown since the Eutychium? Why does he not eat meat? There's a whole bunch of things that sort of stick out and be like, you're just not behaving like we would expect from an Alapai. And I think there is an outside chance that he is actually a Yunkti, that he is a zombie dog that Viz accidentally created during the Eutychium, and that's why he hasn't grown since that in size. So that's potentially what's going on there. And there's something unique about him, right? Because Ostius then comes down, looks at his face, and then gets all giddy with excitement and being like, oh, no, you can come. You are not bound by the same laws of physics. Physics is probably the wrong word. Of quantum mechanics that Viz and I are in terms of traveling between worlds. Why? Because you're dead. It's totally okay. You can travel between worlds. Perhaps. Or it's just some special breed of synchronous dog that we don't yet know about. But I like my theory a little bit better than that one. So they're my 4 current theories that we've got going. We'll see what comes of any of those. They'll be wrong. All of my theories thus far have been wrong. Why will this one end up being correct? I'm excited to see where this goes next. Until next time, ciao.